one of the things that the traffickers do is they try to break your spirit. They do it, maybe you've been gang raped 30 times the first night, and you're told that you're worthless and you're a piece of, it rhymes with spit.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another manopause.com podcast. Today, our special guest again is Mitzi Perdue. If you didn't watch our first podcast with her, she is an heiress, a humble heiress, an author, and right now she's a very powerful and involved advocate in the anti-human trafficking community. And that's what we really want to talk to everybody about today, and have Mitzi enlighten us not only on the severity of the problem, but also what can be done in addition to the work she's doing, how we as individuals can contribute either financially or with whatever skills we have. So welcome, Mitzi.
Well, it's a joy to be back.
So tell us a little bit about how you got involved with this in the first place. We'll mention you have an organization, and we're going to put a little blurb down there called uletgroup.org, ULET group.org, and we'll put that down there. Tell us how you got involved with this movement.
Okay, and I'm going to make a huge effort to recognize the fact that we're going to go to a very dark place, but then we're going to come right out of it and learn what we can do, which is a lot. The dark place. Human trafficking. I first became really aware of it after hearing a lecture that changed my mind. It was maybe, I've lost count, maybe 5 years ago, but this speaker told his audience, and I was, sitting in a chair. It was a beautiful tropical island. You could look out at the yachts and the surf and everything. And this speaker just brought me back to something that changed my life. He showed pictures of little girls, I'm going to guess 10, 12 years old, who had just been rescued from being trafficked. And up until that point, the word human trafficking, it would just sort of glide by. It didn't mean anything. But when you see the faces of little girls and learn that they've had to have sex with strangers 10 or 12 times a night, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and that their life expectancy is 7 years, because what's going to take them is an overdose or suicide or disease, or if they're no longer attractive to the clients, they'll be murdered to have their organs harvested.
Jeez.
Okay, once I heard that,
Wow.
I thought this is the most evil thing I've ever heard of in my entire life. So I began reading up about it. Is this real? And I invite anybody who hasn't heard about human trafficking, there's endless information on the internet about it, or contact me. But here's what I learned. And the figures I'm going to give you, they're several years old. They're the latest that seem to be available, but I bet it's 3 or 4 times that by now. 3 or 4 years ago, it was a $150 billion a year industry. Only drug trafficking brings in more money to illegal, for illegal destinies of money. Drug is first, human trafficking is second, and arms dealing is third. And we believe there are 40 million people who are being trafficked. And human trafficking, part of it is sex trafficking. And by the way, that tends to be with children. And then part of it is labor trafficking. And in that case, it's somebody who thinks, this happens in the United States. They think they're coming to this country for a wonderful job, but instead, no, they're almost kept as prisoners, and they're not paid, and they've been terrified of the police, and they just end up being contemporary slaves. 40 million people in slavery. Okay, that's the dark part. Let's get to something more hopeful.
Let's get to the part like at the end of Taken, where Liam Neeson kills the bad guy. Let's get to that part.
Okay, I have to tell you, I think I'm a sweet, mild-mannered little old lady. I'm 81 years old. Uh,
Wow.
I shouldn't be shrieking with joy watching all those bad guys killed. I guess I've got a side of me that is out of character, but I loved that movie.
I
However,
know.
however, it's not typical because most of the people. Let's stick with sex trafficking for the moment. Uh, I at a guess, and it's an educated guess because I've heard people who know a lot more than I do make this guess that it's way less than 5% of girls who get like kidnapped. It happens, but it's not the general way. The general way is uh, somebody's kind of lured into it. Maybe she thinks that this guy that she met on the internet, who's so
Mm.
interested in her and who understands her problems with her parents, and they meet, and then she gets taken. It's rarely as violent as the movie Taken, but I do love that movie. But okay, so what happens after a girl is rescued? Uh, the problem is the horrible, terrible problem is, and I have this from numerous sources, but my most recent source was an on the beat cop in Florida, in Miami. He said that he can rescue a girl and maybe even take her to a shelter. He said, in his experience, now tell me if this isn't catastrophic. He said 8 times out of 10, he'll see that girl on the street again. Why would she go back?
Brainwashed.
Brainwashed. That
Hmm.
she thinks
Stockholm
she's,
syndrome kind of thing.
Right.
well, possibly even worse than Stockholm syndrome, because one of the things that the traffickers do is they try to break your spirit. They do it, maybe you've been gang raped 30 times the first night, and you're told that you're worthless and you're a piece of, it rhymes with spit. Um, you, I mean, the things that they do, I don't think I can say on air, but to break their spirit and make them think that they're absolutely worthless. And they're told, oh, your parents don't care about you. Nobody cares about you. Uh, they, if you've broken their spirit enough, sometimes it's hard. Well, how about often it's hard for them to be healed enough to hold a job or even to apply for a job. And so, to my mind, the biggest thing is prevention. And by the way, I don't want to tar all rescue organizations with the same brush because some are spectacularly successful at it. Uh, One that I particularly admire, it's called Annie Cannon's. And Annie Cannon's, its premise is that a certain percentage of girls who have been trafficked have have an aptitude for computer programming.
That's
And
interesting.
And after a year of training with Annie Cannon, they can be so good at coding that their opening job is at like 70,000 a year, and they're in huge demand, particularly right now today with the war in Ukraine going on. If you have a background in coding and cybersecurity, uh, I've been told by people who are active in this, you're getting 2 hours sleep a night because you're spending all your time fending off these cyber security attacks. So the good news is the ones who are good at it, the shelters that are good at it, have a fabulous record. I mean, my impression is that with Annie Cannon, nobody goes back, and some of the shelters do have a wonderful record. But to my mind, the pain that people have gone through in being trafficked. I mean, imagine a girl raped once. Uh, there's a woman I'm fairly close to. She's actually in her 90s now. She was raped 50 years ago. It still haunts her. And that's one rape. Imagine that you've been raped daily, 10 times a day, 365 days a year for years. It's people can
Oh,
approach normalcy, but boy, is it a long, hard slog. So, what I want to do is prevention.
So,
And
the thing with prevention though is it might be like a lot of things because, as you say, the numbers seem to be rising, and the question is the rise in numbers in any way related to the economic disparity that's occurring around the world between the haves and the have-nots, meaning that there's more and more have-nots who are either desperate or abandoned or whatever. And so would one of the key elements of prevention be trying to get more wealth equity, not only in the United States, but around the world?
Yes, but I do have, I can share with you an organization that I think's trying to do something in that realm, but I don't think it's a one,
One size fits all.
yeah, I mean, it's utterly certain that the traffickers prey on the vulnerable. They want somebody who's economically desperate, but that's not the only cause. I mean, in a
Right.
lot of cases of like 13-year-old girls, maybe they've got a loving family, but they're having problems with their mother and they're having problems in school, and in one way or another, when this nice, kindly 16-year-old who's really probably 40 and is running 100 other girls at the same time, but when she meets him on the internet and he's just kind and loving, she can get lured in. I mean, I've read that a huge percentage of girls who end up trafficked, that they met their trafficker on the internet, and so absolutely 100% certain the traffickers are going to go after the people who are economically desperate, but they go after everybody else who's
Well, and in South America also, it's kidnapping. I mean,
Right.
they don't even make the pretense of, hey, I want to be your friend. They just grab them and they're gone.
Right.
Alas, I mean, it's such a problem. There's so many like layers that get into this but now let's have some hope.
Yeah.
And it comes from the financial institution, UBS. They have something called the Optimus Foundation, and the head of it, her cause is human trafficking. And UBS, the last I checked, they had 750 billionaire clients. A lot of these clients want to do something to make the world a better place. So this thing is funded. What the premise of what they want to do is, in Bangladesh, they would like to eliminate human trafficking in one country. And a lot of countries wanted UBS help, but Bangladesh won out because at all levels of government and many non-governmental organizations, they all agreed that they'd work as hard as they could to do the following. What if in one country we could use everything we know about prevention? And income inequality certainly is going to play a role in that. But I don't know if you know this, but in many universities throughout the world, there are people who are actually studying human trafficking. And there are all sorts of ways of going about it, whether it's education or helping people get jobs, or very, very important, teaching kids just from a young age, if somebody's making you this offer of a modeling job and it seems too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. But the premise of what UBS is doing is taking all the knowledge we have, all the experience that we have, all the academic studies, everything that we possibly know, and bring it to bear in one country, a country that's cooperating and wants to be the country where this is solved. You put 5 or 6 years of effort into this using, I'm kind of making this up, but it seems like 100 different ways of attacking the problem. And then they'll have academics who will study what worked and what didn't work. And they're prepared to be surprised, because sometimes, well, like one thing that I'm very excited about is there's a company, it's called Lights of Love, and I may have the name slightly wrong, but anyway, the premise is that if you can achieve, they have this thing, it's the size of a brick, and it costs $10 if you're buying it in a huge quantity. And it's a solar light. During the day, it collects light energy. At night, it can light the home of somebody who maybe their income is like $1 a day. But if suddenly they're not spending money on kerosene for lighting, They can spend it maybe, in one way or another, earning money or getting an education. But this Lights of Love, I'm so embarrassed I can't think of the exact name of it, but maybe something like that can make a dent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm expecting that we're going to learn some really innovative, clever ways of attacking the problem, and then the basics are certainly going to count. But the idea is, if we could learn how to do it in one country, then that's a template for doing it for the rest of the world. And I don't know what the answer is right now, but I'm sure prepared myself to contribute everything that I can to trying to eliminate trafficking.
You just got back. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you just got back from Ukraine on an anti-trafficking mission. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, that would be my joy. And as a matter of fact, if somebody who wants to do something to help Ukraine, write to uletgroup.org, and I think you're going to have it in the show notes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But here's the exciting thing. I got invited to Ukraine by the chief of police, General Nebitov, of the Kiev region. He employs 6,000 people, so it's a big deal. He had heard of me because I'd written a story about human trafficking in Ukraine. He invited me to come see for myself, and here's what I learned. I spent time on the border between Ukraine and Poland, and here's what I saw. That crossing that border, I don't know the numbers, but I could guess that it might even be 100 a day of women. Well, they're tens of thousands who are crossing the border. But at the border, the traffickers operate in teams. And on the Ukraine side, they're going to be spotters. On the Polish side, or Belarus, or any of the other countries, any of the other border countries, they're going to be the actual traffickers who are going to lure the women into being trafficked. And here's how it works. The spotter will have a lot of skill in recognizing that a woman is just so tired, so exhausted, so just kind of out of it. Maybe she's been walking for 5 days to get to this border. Maybe she hasn't had a meal in the longest time. Maybe she's got like a little 7-year-old girl that she's dragging along with her, and she has no possessions and no money, and she's desperate, and she has what one friend of mine describes as the 1,000-yard stare. She's just out of it. All right, the spotter trafficker is going to take his cell phone, and he's going to make it look as if he's taking a selfie of himself, but actually he's got the cell phone high enough up so that he's taking her picture. Puts the cell phone down, calls the trafficker on the other side and says, "Hey, we got a live one. Look at this girl in the orange blouse and the blonde hair with the little girl. She's perfect for you." So when the girl gets to the other side, and or young woman probably, and she thinks she's safe, there's this kindly man who comes up to her and says, "Oh, you could use a hot meal, right? The bus to the center is leaving in 10 minutes. We'll get you a place to, a shelter where you can get a hot meal, and your daughter will be safe, and you can spend the night there." Well, the woman, she's so desperate and so out of it, and the traffickers put the time pressure on her. The bus is leaving in 10 minutes. She gets on the bus and probably is never heard of again. And that night, I'm told that one of the things that they do there is that they'll rape her 30 times so that her soul is gone. She's just completely broken. Okay, that's the dark part. What the head of the Ukrainian police is enthusiastic about is, what if we could do the following? And I've already been raising money for this. For somewhere around like $50,000 to $100,000, you can rehab an empty building in the area. You can make it a 20-bed building. You can have it a place where one of those girls that the spotter sees, well, the and the people on our side, the police can see it too, that this girl's desperate. He takes her as a person who's going to prevent the trafficking, takes this girl aside and said, look, I can tell you that you're really tired and exhausted. There's some bad guys on the other side. Come with us, and for 24 hours, just hit pause, have a good meal, talk with some counselors, talk with what your options are. And if you could hit a pause in each of the border crossing areas, and I don't know how many there are, but let's say they're 20, which is probably a good guess. I don't think they're 2,000 and I don't think they're 3. But if you could save 20 girls each night in all the border crossings, an awful lot of women would not be trafficked. And I'm going to take the word of General Nebitov that this is something that could really help. Well, with the nonprofit that I've set up, it's called, the initials are for Ukrainian Law Enforcement Training Group. So youletgroup.org. You can make a $10 contribution, a $5 contribution, but if there are loads and loads of them, we can rehab more and more of these buildings, and more girls will not be trafficked. And I'm almost more interested in loads of small contributions than I am in a great big one.
Sure.
Because let me tell you what's going to happen with it. You can make your donation anonymous if you like, or make up a name, or have your real name. But I want to go, when I return to Ukraine, and I've been invited to come back, I would like to go with a list of 1,000 names of people who've given money towards this.
Well, we're going to help you.
Well,
guess what?
I've heard from my contact at the Kiev police that they're going to make a big deal of this. They're going to have it, like press releases from throughout Ukraine that there are Americans who really care about Kiev women and want to help.
Well, there is something positive to add to this. A scary, sad story about the human trafficking, but we have a section of our website called Man a Cause, and we will publish your charity on our site and help promote it for you. So our listeners will hopefully give and give and give. And like you said, those $10 donations do add up. And
well, I'm sure like 100, but I want to be.
No, of course. But those $10, I mean, just to give $10 is something. And just to give, like Larry wrote a column, give till it hurts. Because once you give, it doesn't hurt, right? It makes you feel good. And so we will promote it for you. And that's kind of what, our mission in life is to help, to help people like yourself promote their organizations on Man a Cause. So it's a really big part of what and who we are as two guys, running a website called manapause.com. But it's not just about, having fun and exploring what men go through in life when they hit 50 and above. But it also is about, just the human side of what people are experiencing. So thank you so much for sharing your story. This is eye-opening. I mean, I knew about this, and Larry and I both have daughters and granddaughters, and it's scary for them. And
the other part of it is, as Mike was saying, is a lot of people, including us, in the beginning, you see a problem, it's like, well, I don't know how to help.
Right. What do we do?
Because especially in a problem that's so pervasive. But here's a way to start, and Mike started a group of us that goes to Uganda to help AIDS orphans. And we do small things like, we raise money to build houses for the family. We buy them mattresses that they've never seen before, and pillows, and, do things. And I sponsor 4 kids. I think Mike sponsors 4 kids right now for their entire schooling. And it's dirt cheap, right? But a lot of people joke, it's like peeing in the ocean trying to make a difference. But if everybody pees in the ocean, it will make a difference, right? So that's going to be our goal now, is for people who are like, this is horrible. What can I do? Well, start with youlet.org. That's a good way to start. And as you get more involved, you'll find other outlets, or if you follow Mitzi, you'll hear more information about how you can make a difference. No matter how small it is, if we all work together on this, it can become actually a tsunami of giving and change. And that's hopefully what we can communicate to our audience.
Well, on the website, we're going to show the progress of the rehabbed buildings and
Awesome.
maybe some photographs, but they'll have to be slightly disguised of women who've benefited.
Yeah.
But most of all, I want to show the police who are just, law enforcement is one of the biggest bulwarks against human trafficking, and the people who are the police that I know who are fighting this. You can't believe how much their hearts are in this.
Yeah.
So anything that we can do to prevent the suffering, that's why.
Well, it's youlet.org, everybody, and you will see
it's youletgroup.org,
and you're going to see
that
that
right
on the bottom, and we'll have a link to it as well. And go check it out. And Mitzi, thank you so much for not only being our guest today, but for everything that you're doing. You're a menopause girl for sure. And and
that's the first time we've ever given that out.
That's
Mary.
right.
That's right.
Then can I share something funny that happened?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, please. After
I
all
was
of
traveling
this,
with a group of retired military people. There were at different times there would be 3, 5, 8 people, and if you've been in the military, you probably know how to put this, how to swear. But I could tell that they were trying to clean up their language with me around, and that it was it was just awkward because I felt that I got along with the group great. I felt we loved each other, but there was this curse word stuff problem. So I told them, when they were in the middle of trying to clean up their language, I said, hey guys, don't bother, because this is 2022, a time of gender fluid, and I declare myself as a man today.
Awesome. That's awesome.
good for you.
Yeah.
That's great.
So it was just so cool from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this has been great. And hopefully we can have you back, especially after you go back to Ukraine. We obviously want an update. And then also we'll check in and see how your book Relentless is doing. But thank you so much for doing this. We know your time is precious, and we really appreciate you coming on with us.
Well, you invited me back. I'd like nothing better. Thank you.
Oh,
I've had a
great.
wonderful time.
All right, great. Thanks, Mitzi.
Thanks, Mitzi. Take
Thanks,
care.
guys.
Okay.